Thank you for coming to today's session, Upgrading ArcGIS Enterprise. My name is Cameron Croker, and I'm on the Enterprise team. My co-presenter here is Nicole Murphy. And today we're going to be discussing some common terms with upgrades, what upgrades are, why you should upgrade, the supported versions that you can upgrade from and to, some considerations to take before performing the upgrade. Then we'll talk about the recommended of the upgrade. And then we'll talk about each component of Enterprise and the upgrade experience for web adapter, portal for ArcGIS, ArcGIS server, ArcGIS data store. And then once we've talked about the upgrade experience, we'll talk about some validation checks that you can do after the upgrade is complete so that you ensure that the upgrade was a success. And then we'll talk a little bit about ArcGIS Enterprise Builder, the upgrade experience with that, and then we'll conclude with a video demonstration of the upgrade. So let's talk about some common terms and definitions. So when we refer to an in-place upgrade, this is how the setup is ran. In this scenario, the setup for the new version is installed on top of the existing software. So this means that you don't have to uninstall the previous version prior to installing the new. So for example, if you have version 10.6 on your server, then you can just run the 10.7.1 setup right over that and it'll upgrade it. Then we have an uninstall, install, upgrade method, which is the opposite of that. And this would be where you uninstall your previous version prior to installing the new version. So this would be if you have 10.6 installed, you uninstall your 10.6, then you install 10.7.1. And we also have one click. This refers to what needs to be done after the setup has complete. So this means that there aren't any forms to be filled out. You simply just click one button to continue the upgrade of the software. Then we have post-upgrade, and this is an operation that needs to be done after the upgrade has been completed. Once the upgrade is complete, the new setup is ran, and the final continue upgrade has been clicked. We also have direct upgrade, and this is when you upgrade from your current version to another without going to an intermediate version first. So a direct upgrade could be, say, from 10.6 directly to 10.7.1, where an intermediate would be you first upgrade to 10.6.1 and then 10.7 and then 10.7.1. And that would be also known as an indirect upgrade. And so what are upgrades? They're a way of any existing version of the software to move to a newer version of the software. The upgrade will maintain your content, security, configuration, users and groups, and other customizations. However, this does exclude the config.js file changes that you've made. So you'd want to save that file and then put it back in the location after the upgrade has completed. Upgrades also don't apply just to the core components of Enterprise, but they also apply to the other server roles such as like GeoEvent, GeoAnalytics, Image Server, as well as apps, Workforce, Insights, etc. And so why should we upgrade? Well, it gives you access to the latest and greatest features and functionality. It helps you stay within the supported life cycles, either the short-term or long-term life cycle. It includes security vulnerability fixes, as well as bug fixes and performance enhancements. So here we have a table of the supported versions that you can upgrade from and to. And so, for example, if you're wanting to upgrade to 10.7.1, and you're at 10.1, you can't do a direct upgrade. You'd have to first upgrade to an intermediate version. So that would be first upgrade to, say, 10.2.x or 10.3, and then you can upgrade to 10.7.1. Just note that 10.7x will be the last release series that supports direct upgrades from 10.2.x. So some considerations before performing the upgrade. One of them would be to read the documentation. We have an upgrade enterprise documentation that lists some prerequisites and some other considerations that it recommends to backup. Then you would also want to download your setup files, installation files from Esri, along with your license files. The portal for ArcGIS license file starting at 10.7 is a JSON file. And then if you use any applications like Workforce, Collector, Insights, it's recommended that you check the version compatibility with Portal prior to upgrading Portal. This is because those applications, many of them are on a different release cycle, and so you may want to just check to see, you may have to wait until the latest release of that app comes out before you upgrade your enterprise. And if you're using a version where the WebGIS DR tool is available, it's highly recommended to run this tool to create a backup prior to performing the upgrade. This will back up your portal content, users and groups, along with your ArcGIS server services, security settings, as well as the relational and tile cache ArcGIS data store. The other option would be to, another backup method would be to use each component's individual backup method, and like ArcGIS server has a backup utility and export site, as well as the data store. It has its own command line backup utility that will just back up data store. And another backup option would be to back up the content stores themselves. For example, Portal's default is C ArcGIS Portal, and ArcGIS Server is C ArcGIS Server, and then Data Store is the same, C ArcGIS Data Store. And it would be recommended if you back up this, if you use this method for backup, to first stop the Portal and the server, ArcGIS Server, and the Data Store Windows service or Linux service, and then back up those directories. That way there aren't any locked files that are saved. And then another option would be to take a snapshot of all the environments if you're on virtual machines. And this would also include, say you have your content stores on a file server. They will need to be a snapshot of the file server itself. And then as a reminder, to not unfederate prior to the upgrade. Your federation settings are maintained during the upgrade process. And the recommended order of the upgrading the enterprise components would be first to upgrade Portal, and then upgrade your Portal's web adapter, and then next you'd want to upgrade your ArcGIS server. Now if you have a multi-node site, it's recommended to upgrade each ArcGIS server one at a time, and then after you've upgraded all of your ArcGIS server nodes, you would then want to upgrade your ArcGIS server web adapters, and then lastly upgrade ArcGIS data store. And then just a reminder, you do not need to upgrade through all the releases. So say you're at 10.3, you don't have to do an intermediate upgrade to 10.3.1, 10.4, 10.4.1. You can just go directly to the latest release. Now let's take a look at the upgrade experience for the ArcGIS web adapter. So one tip would be to first make note of your web adapter context. This is the web adapter name itself, and this can be found in a couple of different places. On a Windows machine, it can be found in your install programs, uninstall programs and features. It could also be found within the ArcGIS server admin API along with the Portal API. And then on Linux, you could find it in your web server where you deployed the WAR file. And so once you've made note of the web adapter name that's highlighted there, then you can uninstall the previous version of your web adapter. This is because we don't quite yet support direct upgrade of the web adapter. It needs to be uninstalled and then install the new version. And when you go to install the new version of the web adapter, you want to make sure that you use the same name as your previous web adapter. And then once the setup has complete, you'll want to configure it with your portal or ArcGIS server. And we'll show all this in the demo later. And I'll go ahead and hand it over to Nicole, who will talk about upgrading portal.
Good morning. Am I working? Okay. Good morning, everybody. So as Cameron mentioned, my name is Nicole Murphy. I am a product engineer on the enterprise development team. Upgrades is an area of the software that I specialize in. So before I go into more details about the rest of the components, how many in the room have done an upgrade of enterprise before? Okay, about half of you. How many are planning to do an upgrade, say, in the next year? Everybody. Excellent. Is there anybody here on any of the 10.2x versions? We got like a handful of people. Anybody on 10.1 server? Got one lone guy over there. All right. So let's take a quick look at some of the specific details you should consider when you're upgrading Portal. So first, it's going to depend on what version of Portal you're upgrading to. Throughout several releases now, Portal has gone through many changes in the upgrade process. So once the installation is done, depending what version you're going to, you should be presented with one of these pages. The bottom right, where it talks about importing the license file and continuing the Portal upgrade, this is the new UI for the 10.7 and 10.7.1 series. This is where that JSON file that Cameron had mentioned will be used. One of the most important things within upgrading is indexing. So prior to 10.7, one of the steps that was required by the users was to manually run a reindex. If you're upgrading to 10.7 or 10.7.1 and your content is on a file system, whether it's a file share or just locally on your C or D drive, we will do the reindexing for you. If you're in a cloud store, say you're in S3 or Azure Blob Store, we do not do the reindexing there. So if you're in that situation, you'll still need to run the reindex yourself. So let's take a quick look of what reindexing kind of looks like. After an upgrade, if you go into Portal Admin under System and Indexer, if you click on the status directly after upgrading, you may see this kind of scenario where the numbers are not in sync. You get these red glaring items. In this scenario, what you need to do is under the reindex option in mode, you're going to select full. So this will reindex your users, your groups, and all of your items. This will take several minutes to run depending on the amount of items and everything you have within your portal. Once it's complete, you get presented and brought back to the indexing page within Portal Admin. I still recommend that after this is done, you check the status and ensure that it actually is in sync. So why is reindexing important? The index is how Portal knows where to find everything. When you search for an item in Portal, it's using the index. When you go to that My Content tab and it's displaying all of those items that you own, that's being displayed because of the index. If your index is not in sync, you might think items are missing, search isn't working correctly, and that's because of an index problem. Living Atlas. If you have Living Atlas configured, which was introduced at 10.5, prior to 10.7, you were required to log into the portal, go to System, go under the ArcGIS Online tab, find the Living Atlas, run the Living Atlas upgrade. At 10.7, we have included Living Atlas into the post-upgrade operation, so you no longer need to do those steps. We're trying to condense it into less workflows. A key change that happened at 10.6.1, Enterprise as a whole stopped supporting using an enterprise geodatabase as your hosting database. That does not mean we don't support enterprise geodatabases at all. That just means when you publish an item to the portal and the data goes somewhere, it's going into the ArcGIS data store. That's what we require at 10.6.1. So anybody who's sitting at 10.2.2 with Portal, you're in this situation. If you're upgrading to anything beyond 10.6.1, you're going to be required to go through a workflow that we've created. If you want to go over those steps, you can come see us at the island and we can go through that. What happens if you're in this situation? When you log in and you go to that servers tab in the Portal home app, you get this kind of big, nasty looking notice that's telling you you're in an unsupported configuration. When you dismiss that notice, you're going to have a red exclamation mark next to your server that's telling you, again, you're in an unsupported configuration, you must use the ArcGIS data store. So one of the things I want to mention before I switch into licensing is prior to 10.7, after the setup completed, you were presented with what we call the software authorization wizard. And that was where you used to provide that ECP or PRVC file. That's not going to happen starting at 10.7. So not seeing that software authorization wizard is expected. Not being given an ECP file is expected. You should be given a JSON file for 10.7 or 10.7.1. All of our methods, what we call the home app or that UI, our Portal admin API, our command line tools have all been updated to require the JSON file before you can continue the upgrade. If you have any custom Python scripts or anything that you may have written that use Portal admin to do the upgrade, those will need to be updated to use the JSON file at the same time it's sending the upgrade request. This is where I'm going to warn that things might get a little confusing. So bear with us. At 10.7, we introduced user types. If you use ArcGIS Online, you've already seen this and experienced what the user types are. So I'm going to talk about what that means in terms of enterprise and what happens to the members within your portal once you upgrade to 10.7 or 10.7.1. If you have any questions after the presentation about this workflow or want to understand it a little more, you can certainly come see us at the island and we can go through that. So the first workflow we'll talk about is if you're upgrading from any version between 10.2 and 10.4.1. So this is where there was no level 1, no level 2. This was just members. If you have a license file that has a single user type that's compatible with level 2, say creator, all of your members will come over and be assigned the creator user type. If you have a license file that contains more than one user type that's compatible with a level 2, all of your members will come over into this user type we have called standard temporary. And I will talk more about what standard temporary means here in a few minutes. If you're sitting at version 10.5 through 10.6.1, so this is where you do have level 1 and level 2 members in your portal, we have kind of a 1-to-1 ratio. If you have a license file that has one user type that's compatible with level 1, one user type that's compatible with level 2, they will come over. So say you have viewer and creator, your level 1s will come over as viewers, your level 2s will come over as creators. Then we have the scenario where you have multiple user types compatible with level 1 and multiple user types compatible with level 2. In this scenario, all of your level 1 members would come over as this light temporary. All of your level 2 members will come over as this standard temporary. These are some mixed scenarios. So if you have one user type that's compatible with level 1 and multiple user types that are compatible with level 2, your level 1 members will come over as, say, a viewer, and your level 2s will be in standard temporary. So then we kind of have a reverse situation where, say, you have multiple user types compatible with level 1 and a single user type compatible with level 2. So your level 1s will be light temporary and your level 2s may be creator. There's also like GIS professional. What is standard temporary and light temporary? When the new user types came out, we went through a lot of different designs trying to come up with the right solution. When you provide us a license file that has more than one compatible user type, we realized we can't choose for you what the people in your portal should be in terms of user type. So instead, we put them into a standard temporary for anybody who is level 2 or a light temporary for anybody who is level 1. So you would at least be able to distinguish who was level 2 and who was level 1 after the upgrade. It's very important that you take anybody who's assigned to these user types and assign them to a valid one. Anybody that has this user type, unless they have the administrator role, that built-in administrator, cannot log into the portal. They do not have access to it. This is not a valid user type. This is something we created specifically for the upgrade workflow. So let's talk about high availability portals. In the past 3 releases, there was a lot of changes. It changed up quite a bit. If you were upgrading to a version prior to 10.6.1, you were required to break the high availability before you could upgrade. At 10.6.1, we didn't require you to break the high availability, but there was other problems after that. At 10.7, we made even more improvements. I'm going to talk through the 10.6.1 and 10.7 changes more here. So at 10.6.1, you didn't have to break the high availability, which was great, but you had to know who was primary and who was standby because you were required to continue the upgrade on the primary portal. This posed problems because it created the questions of which machine should I start the install on first? Maybe I started this one 2 minutes before the other one, and now I created a failover. Now I don't know who's really primary or standby. So we wanted to get rid of those questions and make it simpler. So at 10.7, you don't need to know who's primary and who's standby. The upgrade figures it out, and it will do the upgrade. You don't have to break HA. You don't have to know who's who. We continue the upgrade. When the upgrade is done, you log in. If you're required to do a post-upgrade operation, it will just run it. Doesn't matter what portal you're on. So we'll take a quick look at some of the stuff in server to be aware of. Prior to 10.5, if you've been using server for a long time, the upgrade was done after you ran the setup. So if you upgraded from, say, 10.2 to 10.4, just ArcGIS server, after the setup completed at Open Manager, you could log in. It was all done. At 10.5, we made some key licensing changes that required us to change this workflow. So starting at 10.5, after the setup completes, it opens the manager page, but you'll see a button that says Continue Server Upgrade, and you just click that and it finishes. One thing I like to note to people is at 10.5, we made some changes. If you have federated servers, these are not your hosting servers that are, say, just serving out images. You have just an image server. When you upgrade your base enterprise deployment, that portal, hosting server, and data store, you do not need to upgrade those general federated servers at the same time, as long as they are at least 10.5. The only difference with that is anything, say, like geoanalytics, because it needs to communicate with that hosting server, or something like GeoEvent. But anything that's just a, say, general GIS server serving out map services, or an image server serving out image services, you do not have to upgrade those at the same time as long as they're at least at 10.5. So 10.1 upgrades, and this one gentleman over here sitting at 10.1. You can't upgrade from 10.1 to 10.7. It went out of support. If you try to run the setup on top, the in-place upgrade Cameron spoke about, the setup will throw an error. If you tried to do an uninstall install upgrade, so uninstall 10.1, install 10.7, you tried to do the upgrade in the server manager, you're going to get an error. Starting at 10.8, this will be the same story for anybody who's on 10.2, 10.2.1, or 10.2.2. So 10.7.1 is the last release that you can directly upgrade from any of those 10.2 versions. So if you're sitting on those, you might want to think about moving off of them, even if you just go to 10.3, just so that you're not stuck there for a bit. Multi-cluster sites. So So at 10.7, server removed the support for multiple clusters. It's been a while now that we haven't really been using them. We know some people are still out there with multiple clusters, so we had to do something about that in the upgrade. So what happens if you're upgrading to 10.7 and you have multiple clusters? The first thing that's going to happen is we are going to check if you have what's called the default cluster. If this does not exist, we will create it. The next thing that we will do is we will move every server in the site into that default cluster. Then we will take all of your services, including the system and utility services that are built into server, and move them into the default cluster. After the upgrade, when you log into Manager, any of these services that were moved into that default cluster will be in a stopped state. You will be required to go through each of those services and determine who you need to start. So a quick peek at ArcGIS Data Store. So Data Store was introduced at 10.3. Prior to 10.7, whenever you were upgrading, you're required to upgrade the primary data store before you could upgrade the standby. Starting at 10.7, similar to what we did with the high availability portal, you no longer need to upgrade primary before standby. You run the setup on both data stores, pick one of them to start the upgrade, and it will upgrade both for you. Starting at 10.6, you can no longer do an uninstall install upgrade. So Cameron talked about that method where you uninstall the old version, install the new one. If you're upgrading ArcGIS Data Store to 10.6 or above, you cannot use that method. You must do an in-place upgrade. The spatiotemporal big data store. So if you're using geoanalytics, you're using this. You need to run the installation on all of the machines within the spatiotemporal configuration. After you've run the installation on each of the machines, you just need to execute the upgrade on one of them, and it will go and upgrade all of the stores within the configuration. So let's look at some things you can do to validate the upgrade after. So that's kind of one of the most common questions we get. How do I know it worked? It seemed to work. How can I tell? So one of the first important things you do, log into Portal. Can you log in? If you can log in, we're already starting off on a good foot. Then you're going to want to validate all of your servers. So this is going to go into your settings tab, servers, validate them all. You want to make sure that the communication between your portal and your servers is still working correctly. In Portal Admin, you're going to want to check your index status. So even if you're upgrading to 10.7 or 10.7.1 and your content is on a file system and we've done that for you, check it. Just in case something had gone wrong, make sure it's in sync so you're not having any problems with searches or finding your content. While you're in Portal Admin, also check your TLS settings. It's possible that you have to make some changes here. Publishing, you're going to want to run through some publishing tests. Publish just even a zipped shape file, nothing special, to Portal. Make sure that that's working okay. Publish to your server, publish, from ArcMap or Pro, publish through Manager with an SD file, doesn't matter. Make sure server services are publishing okay. If you're using scene services, you're gonna wanna publish a scene. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be fancy, just make sure your 3D services are still functioning. If you're upgrading to 10.7 or 10.7.1, check your users, make sure nobody's sitting in that standard temporary or light temporary situation. If they are, you need to move them out of that into a valid user type. One of the tricks with that, if you want to avoid that situation, when you're generating that JSON file from my Esri or you're requesting it from your account manager, your sales rep, request the first JSON file to only contain one user type compatible with level 2 and one user type compatible with level 1. That just ensures that every member in your portal does not land in that situation that they're in the standard temporary or light temporary. So that's each component individually. We also have this thing called ArcGIS Enterprise Builder that includes all of those components in one simple setup. So we'll talk a little bit of specifics about that. Enterprise Builder was introduced at 10.5.1. This is the all-in-one installer that installs everything for you on one machine: portal, server, data store, 2 web adapters, configures it. So the first version that we supported upgrades for this was 10.6. The big caveat with this one is you can only upgrade using Enterprise Builder if the deployment was installed with Enterprise Builder. So it has to be Enterprise Builder to Enterprise Builder. If you have made changes, like you wanted to put the web adapter on a different machine, so you uninstalled the web adapters, installed them somewhere else and reconfigured them, you can't upgrade using it. The web adapters are not on that machine anymore, and all the configuration files that Builder wrote are no longer valid. It also has an upgrade-based deployment utility, so if you wanted to script the upgrade for it, not only can you silently install it, you can silently do the upgrade for it as well. So at this point, Cameron's going to go through a demo video of what it looks like to upgrade to 10.7.1. We can't really live demo upgrades. Everybody has other places they would like to be. So this way you can at least see the experience, see what you should be expecting to see, and that way when you're going through the upgrade yourself, you'll be familiar with everything you've seen here.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, let's pull up our video here. So the very first thing, I've already done the backup, I've downloaded the setups, I've downloaded the authorization files, and the first thing we're going to do is run the portal for ArcGIS setup. So once this launches, this is the setup wizard. Go ahead and just click next. Read our license agreement, accept the terms, next, and this is just showing us our install directory. And then we're to enter the password for the portal for ArcGIS Windows Service Run As account. And then this is an option here that you can export this as an XML file. It stores the Run As username and password, so that if you want to use that on your other environments, if it's the same account, you can just import that file instead of having to manually enter that password each time. And then we're ready to install, so we'll click install, and this will go through, and behind the scenes it's really removing the old version and then laying down the new version. And once that's finished, it should launch the web browser, and this is where it will take you to the portal home, and we will import our JSON file, our license file, and then continue the portal upgrade. And once this is complete, it should present us with a message that it's been, the upgrade has completed, and with some instructions on what to do next. So the next thing would be to uninstall your web adapter and install the new web adapter and configure. And it is also going to let you know that your portal is going to go through a restart at this point. So when we click OK, it's going to restart portal, and it will take us to another page that says another notice letting you know that it's time to upgrade the web adapter. So we'll close that out. We'll go to our programs and features and make note of our portal for ArcGIS context or name, and in this case it's portal. And then we'll go ahead and proceed with uninstalling the web adapter. And this is a fairly lightweight uninstall, it just takes a couple of minutes. Once that's uninstalled, we can now run the setup for the 10.7.1 web adapter. And this one is also fairly lightweight, just kind of press next a couple of times, accept our license agreement. And then choose your website that you want the web adapter to be installed on. enter your web adapter context name that you used previously and install. Then once this is finished, you click finish, it will automatically launch the web browser and take you to the web adapter landing page. And this is where you're going to select if you want to configure it with your portal or your ArcGIS server. And so in this case, we're going to select portal. And then this is where we're going to enter our portal 7443 URL along with our portal initial administrator username and password. And we'll go ahead and click configure. This will take a few minutes. Once it's done, it'll present you with your portal web adapter URL in the green box there, and that's letting you know that it's complete and ready to be accessed. Now the portal is finished upgrading. We'll go ahead and launch our ArcGIS server setup, which it's exactly the same experience as the portal's setup. And this just tells you that the installation directory and your Python directory location, enter the username and password. And here you can export the file as well. And then once it's finished, it will launch the web browser once again, but this time it'll take us to the ArcGIS server manager, or actually, I'm sorry, step back. It'll launch the software authorization wizard, and this is where we're going to browse to our ArcGIS server PRVC or ECP file to authorize. Now when you click finish, it will launch the web browser and take you to the ArcGIS server manager page where you can one click to continue the upgrade. And once that's complete, it will take you to this login page. Now technically you won't be able to log in because we haven't updated or upgraded our ArcGIS server web adapter at this point. So at this point you can just go ahead and close the browser, and we'll go to our programs features, and we'll make note of our ArcGIS server web adapter name and proceed with uninstalling it. And it's exactly the same as uninstalling the portal web adapter. We'll just choose remove. And once that's finished, we can close that out and launch our new version of the ArcGIS web adapter setup to install it. Choose our website, and then we're going to enter our ArcGIS server context web adapter name that we used previously. And it's a fairly quick install. Once it finishes, it will launch the browser automatically and take us to the web adapter landing page, just like the portal did. But this time we'll select ArcGIS server. And we'll go ahead and enter our ArcGIS server 6443 URL along with our ArcGIS server initial username and password. And once it's done, just like the portal experience, it presents you with the ArcGIS server web adapter URL there, and it'll take you to your REST services. We can go ahead and close that out now, and let's go ahead and proceed with the data store setup. And it's exactly the same experience. And once this is finished, it will also automatically launch the web browser and take you to your data store configuration page to continue the upgrade. And once we get to this page, this is where we're going to enter our ArcGIS server 6443 URL that it was registered with previously, along with our ArcGIS server administrative username and password. And then once that's entered, we click next, and it will do a prerequisite check to see what type of data stores are configured and need to be upgraded. And so in this case, we have a relational and tile cache, and they're both ready to be upgraded. So we go ahead and click next. It will then upgrade those data stores. And once it's finished, you should be presented with this dialog here that gives you a status that both succeeded. And once that's done, we can go ahead and press next and then close the browser, or we'll go to our portal homepage and sign into Portal Home to ensure that the upgrade went through. Now, since we haven't signed into Portal Home yet, we will be presented with a couple of different messages that we'll see here in a second. And the first message is going to say that the post-upgrade operations are required, and then it will also pop up another notice letting you know that some of your users are in this standard temporary or light temporary state. So we'll just click OK. And the post-upgrade operations is just letting you know that once you click OK, you're going to want to upgrade your ArcGIS hosting server and data store if you haven't done so, but we've already done that, so we'll just click OK. Then once we've clicked OK, we're going to go ahead and take care of our users that are in this standard temporary, light temporary state and assign them proper user types so that they can sign in. And so we'll go ahead and go to the Members tab to fix these accounts. And this, my administrator account, I'm just going to go ahead and assign it a creator user type. It lets you know how many are available and what's included in each user type, and we'll click Save. Now that's taken care of, we can do some additional validation checks. I like to ensure that Federation validates, and I go to the portal admin endpoint. We can click Federation and the servers, and we can use the validation tool here. It gives you a little bit more messages than the home app, but you can also go to the home app settings and validate there as well. So once we click validate, it'll show you a success and a few other things letting you know that the ArcGIS server is working. Next, we can go to the ArcGIS Server Manager page, or you can go to your REST endpoint and just kind of view your map services and make sure that they're started and functioning. And then I didn't record it, but some other validations that Nicole had mentioned is next you'd probably want to do some publishing tests, some basic publishing through Portal, do a simple shapefile, some publishing tests through ArcGIS Server Manager with an SD file or ArcMap, ArcGIS Pro, just to ensure that your enterprise is fully functioning. And with that, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions.
Yeah, I guess we can start with this gentleman here in light blue. Yeah.
The beginning of the presentation mentioned various backup options. If our capability team is taking snapshots of backup of is that sufficient, or would you recommend one of the other ones?
So the question was, when we talked about the different backup methods, if your IT team is taking constant snapshots of your environments, is that sufficient, or should you be looking at some of the other backup options as well? I recommend doing another form of backup, because what happens if something went wrong within your infrastructure and those snapshots aren't working? So having a secondary type of backup that you can use just in case is always something good to consider. We'll just go behind him to this gentleman in the back. So the question was, is it possible to do silent upgrades? And the answer is yes. So the setups can be run silently. All of our components, portal, server, data store, enterprise builder, even the web adapters can be all run silently.
So do you need to move your users and data to
So the question was if you have to move your users and data to a separate environment when you're doing the upgrade. No, the upgrade maintains everything in your environment, your users, your data, your security, any configurations that you have. The only item that we do not maintain is the config.js file that Cameron had mentioned. If you're not familiar with this file, you probably haven't used it, but there are some special customizations that can only be done in this file, and we don't maintain that, and that's the only thing.
One more.
Okay.
Can we get the slide deck?
Yes. So the question was, can you get the slide deck? The slide decks are going to be available. I'm not sure what time. We can probably ask the info desk when these become available. Yeah.
For Enterprise Builder, it was mentioned that you only use it for an upgrade from another Enterprise Builder setup. But how can we use it the very first time?
So the question was about Enterprise Builder. We talk about that you can only upgrade Enterprise Builder if you installed with Enterprise Builder. But how do you get started with it for the first time? And that's a valid question. So many customers that have been using Enterprise for several releases and have their stuff set up may never be able to use Enterprise Builder. Some will set up test environments or a second environment and they start it with Enterprise Builder over there and then they use it to upgrade. So sometimes it's just new environments that are added. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any plans to make Enterprise Builder available to those types of customers that have already installed in the future?
So the question is, are we going to ever make Enterprise Builder available to do the upgrade for customers who have installed manually? As of right now, there are no plans. That's not to say that might not change in the future, but in current plans, I haven't seen it.
So if you want to add special temporal data store to like 261, should you do that first and then do the upgrade, or do the upgrade and then add that?
So the question was if you want to add spatiotemporal data store, if you're at say 10.6.1, should you do it before the upgrade or after the upgrade? If you're in any situation where you're thinking of adding something new, say you're with a standalone ArcGIS server and you want to add Portal, the first thing I recommend is upgrade what you currently have. Don't add anything new before the upgrade. Get your upgrade done. Make sure everything is still functioning the way it was before the upgrade, then add new items. If you add new items before you upgrade and there's a problem, it gets very hard to determine if that problem is coming from the upgrade or if it's coming from anything new that was added into the system. So it's just good to eliminate those types of questions.
Will that installation video be available somewhere?
The question was if the installation video will be available somewhere. I am not sure. I think are the presentations recorded?
I think it's recorded. I know at the Dev Summit, they put our whole entire presentation on YouTube. So I imagine it's the same. I believe it's being recorded right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any special considerations for if you're using reverse proxy web adapters, and how does it flow in the upgrade workflow?
So the question is if there's special considerations if you're using, say, reverse proxies or even like load balancers or something. The only real consideration in those situations is we maintain the web context URL and all of that stuff that you had to set up specially in Portal for those. It's to check if any new ports have to be opened. So that might be the only thing that needs to be considered. But other than that, there's nothing.
At what point do you upgrade the web adapters to, let's say, 10.7, if you're running a 10.6 web adapter in the reverse proxy?
You're going to upgrade the web adapter after you have upgraded the component that's configured with it. So if your web adapter is configured with Portal, upgrade your Portal first, make sure it's running, and then upgrade the web adapter. You can't configure the new web adapter with the Portal or the server until Portal or server have both been fully upgraded.
But if you've got internal web adapters and external web adapters, like in the DMZ, so you're doing the internal ones first, you take down the external ones.
I would say do them all at the same time.
Okay, so do them in sync. So if you're
So yeah, once you've upgraded Portal,
adapters, do both of them.
yep, yep.
So the question was, other than 10.1, are there other versions that are going to be tricky to upgrade from?
10.1.
Not unless you're older than 10.1. If you're at 10.0, there is no upgrade, or even 9X series, there's no upgrade method. That's a clean start. Everything else, 10.2 and above, has direct upgrades, at least until 10.8.
Then follow-up question, what about WebGIS DR, configuring web that?
So the question was, what about WebGIS DR, if that should be done after the upgrade? Is that what you said?
Or how does that get configured during the upgrade process? Or after the upgrade?
So the question is, so the WebGIS DR tool is a backup method only. So it's going to back up everything within your system, your configurations, your security, your groups, your users, and it's specific to a version. So if you are getting ready to upgrade from 10.6.1 and you run the WebGIS DR tool at 10.6.1, what that's ensuring is that if you have a problem within the process, you have a way to get 10.6.1 running again. After the upgrade, once you have validated that the system is working and everything is working as expected, it is recommended to run that again. Running backups frequently throughout the existence of your enterprise is always good if you can set up some sort of automated task to run that WebGIS DR every so often to make sure you always have backups in case anything happens to your system is good.
We're going through a server migration, and our IT department's giving us kind of fresh servers, and they want us to reinstall our server and all the related things. Would you recommend importing configuration files from our old servers, from our old platforms on the old servers, or just rebuilding everything from scratch in the new environment?
So the question is about getting new hardware. When you get new hardware, how do you handle moving stuff from the old hardware to the new hardware? This is a longer answer than we can probably sit here and do. So if you want to chat to us after, we can certainly talk more to that specific. Same with anybody else who has a similar question. There's a couple folks at the island that can help answer those questions. So the question is if we have any plans to support importing a 10.6.1 backup into, say, 10.7.1. As of right now, there are no plans, especially when it's big changes. Those two releases have some fairly large changes. Right now, we don't have plans for it. That's not to say it's not something that will be considered in the future. Let's see. Yeah.
I'm trying to create a bulleted list of kind of an upgrade order.
Yeah.
Is it something that's already published out there that I can just grab from online?
Yeah, so the question is about the recommended order of upgrades. He's trying to create a list. There is. So our documentation goes through the recommended order of upgrading those core components. It's always suggested get that base deployment upgraded first. Anything that's kind of attached to the system outside of that, like GeoEvent or Insights or Workforce or any of those things. Before upgrading, consider the compatibility. As Cameron had mentioned, make sure that the version of, say, Insights you have is compatible with the version of Enterprise you want to go to, or that there is a release version of that app that supports it. But other than that, all of those extra things should be done after your core deployment.
In the very back.
Is there a easy process kind of that they are going to like get online through the portal? Is there a tool or kind of setup process that we just kind of help migrate everything from the online portal?
Yeah, so the question was, is there a tool or a method, workflow to migrate from ArcGIS Online to Portal for ArcGIS? That's more of a migration question. Perhaps we could take it offline and find somebody at the Enterprise Island. Yeah. Sure.
With that, we may have that collaboration. Did you consider between your ArcGIS Online and
Right.
Portal?
But I think so she's mentioned that what about Portal to ArcGIS Online collaboration? But I believe if you break the collaboration, at any point you lose that content? Is that? Or-
I mean, we can talk to the collaboration team. We're not as quite familiar with how collaboration works, and it depends on what.
How would that, what do you have to do with that? To upgrade?
Yeah, and that really is going to depend on what version of Enterprise you're on. Collaboration has changed, and what collaboration supports is different between versions. So you'd really have to know what version of Enterprise you're on, what types of items even that you have in your ArcGIS Online organization, because not all item types are supported by collaboration yet. So there's a lot of nuances within that workflow. Some people do use it, but it's very specific. So if you want to talk more about that, we can direct you to the right people at the island.
I've got enterprise geodatabases that are not the hosting geodatabases, but the supplying data to the server. Do I need to upgrade those as well, or upgrade the licensing for those?
You don't need to upgrade those at the same time. You might have to update the client libraries that you installed on the server, because the server will need the new libraries, and those libraries are backwards compatible with the older versions of the database.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.